We're back. So this time I want to show you the squad going into the new season. Pretty exciting, being that this entire team is put together by me. I drafted every single guy in this team except for one, which was Vladislav. I think he was a 16-year-old when the game originally started, so he's the only guy that. Let's see here. I just have the two OAs, I think, right? Yeah. Yes. Oh no, Declan Ride. Yeah. So Ride and Vlad are the only real guys here. Vlad was a uh, fifth round pick when the game started, so he's developed pretty nicely. He's a nice setup man. So he's got 3 years on the same line now with Ludwig Pearson. They're on the third line together there for a few years and developed some pretty good chemistry with each other. They got good now, so having the two best players on the team with good chemistry in that first line is pretty nasty. The Ludwig's going to be the star center this season. He's the Swedish import pick from the first draft. As a overager, he's going to dominate. Hopefully, he's got 4 points in 3 games. Doesn't have a goal yet, but he's the scorer, and then Vladislav's going to be the setup man, and that's going to be kind of the potent 1-2 punch from the first line. They're quite a bit higher rated than everyone else on this team, so we're hoping they can put quite a bit of point production out there. As you can see, he's 3.5 stars. And then we got Kale Wernich, who was my early second round pick from the draft with Kuhn. Actually went ahead of him, but Kale's developed very nicely, and he's a nice two-way forward, kind of a high-energy guy with good stand-on speed and hitting, and he's also a pretty good puck handler, so he does a lot of things solid, and he's a really well-rounded player, and he's got good leadership and professionalism type stats, so he's a guy I really like as the kind of two-way player on that first line. And then the second line, we have the Calamans. They're not twins or brothers, but they're actually the same age, which is kind of cool. And I didn't even realize till after the draft they have the same name, which is pretty funny. So that's kind of the second line. Calamans growing quite a bit, which is cool. He was about 5'8" when I drafted him. So he's developed into a nice second line center, it looks like, for this season. He's got some awesome defensive positioning, really, really good skater, and he's got a nice shot, and he's kind of a finisher as a center, but really well all-rounded player as a solid defensive player. So I think he's going to be a really, really cool defensive kind of 200-foot player, which is nice. And then the other Kellerman, which was the stud first-round pick last season, is going to be his winger. He's got crazy high potential, as you can see. And he's same kind of player as Wernich from that first line. He's just pretty much a really, really solid two-way player. Really good defensive player. Has only a 17-year-old with already over 10 in all the key categories. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be a wicked two-way winger for 3 full seasons, 17, 18, 19, which is really cool. And hopefully 20 if he doesn't leave. And then we also have that second line is going to be where this year's first round pick plays. I'm kind of putting this guy maybe a bit over his head. I've never had a 16-year-old in the first or second line in the last couple of years, and he's a guy I really like because his offensive read and his leadership and mental ratings, but he's also a really, really good skater. For a 16-year-old, that's really high skating ratings. That should be like 13s in a couple of years, so, and that should be like 15, 16. So I'm expecting him to be kind of like the offensive weapon. Hopefully he grows a little bit and just develops into a star offense player, but we'll see how that kind of turns out. Kuhn was actually the first round pick ahead of that first line guy Wernich that first year, just because he was taller and had a better offensive profile. He hasn't developed a ton, but he's developed enough where he was about 6'2", 160, so he's put on almost 30 pounds, and he's turned into a really good offensive player with good speed, and he has really good mental ratings too. So overall, he's a really solid offensive player, and he's on the power play now as a 17-year-old. I think he's turning 18 this season. I think this is his third year. So he's going to be a nice third line guy. And then we have the third line center is, I think we got, Wilder. Yeah, he's one of my favorite players. He was the third round pick that same draft as Wernich and Kuhn. And I liked him because he was it's crazy. I've never seen someone's potential go up so much. I think he was only 3 stars when I drafted him. Now my scout has him as a 5-star, which is crazy. He played a fourth line defensive center last season. He rotated with Kellerman, that second line center I just showed you. They were the kind of rotated as the fourth line center and got like 10 minutes a game type thing. So they're both in for way bigger roles this season, which is cool. I want to get them both a lot of playtime last year, so I rotate them pretty nicely. Wilder played a tad more because he was better at defense. And we were a pretty good team last season. So you can see he's got really good checking, solid all-around defense. He's actually way better defense when I drafted him, but his offense is caught up, and it's almost equal now. And yeah, another all-around player. He's going to be an awesome, perfect third-line center. in this junior type league as a defensive player, and then next year probably be back in that third line center role again, but maybe move up to the second line center. But yeah, he's just a solid all around player, nothing crazy. And then the fourth line center is gonna be Brett Joe, who just scored his first and second goal of the season already, which is cool, of his career. He's a really good defensive player, and he's got awesome strength. I actually never realized his strength was so good. He's gained a ton of weight since I drafted him too, which is cool. He's up to 6'3", 210 now. So he's going to be a force in a couple of years as a 19-year-old. Hopefully he turns into like a Frasca, like 6'4", like 220, mushing guys with his crazy strength. And his offensive game is pretty solid too, so he could develop into a really good player. But he's pretty average right now at everything, just like a tad better physical than average, I guess you could say. But yeah, he's another guy, which is cool. That's another young guy, 17 years old. So we have a ton of young players. This is the depth chart for the next 3 years. So this is the shit right now. We got the 2 stud overagers on the first line with Warnich, and then we got the Kelman brothers. And oh, I didn't show you Baker yet. I don't think I updated this actually. I think I have Semench on that line right there instead of Baker, and Baker moved down. Baker's another cool player. Baker I took pretty high last year in the second round. That was when we had multiple second round picks, and he had a wicked profile because his offensive read and his puck handling was so high. So he's gone up a lot of weight too, which is really cool. He was about 6'2", 180 when you drafted him or something like that. I can't remember, 6'1", 185, something like that. So he's another guy that's put on some muscle, turned into a wicked offensive player. Doesn't have a great shot, but has awesome passing, offensive read kind of awareness and stuff, and he's got a decent defense. So I just have a ton of these wingers that are all pretty solid offensively and maybe a bit above average that are all like 17, 18. So all these guys are just going to grow together, get chemistry together, and turn into beasts when they're 19, 20. So as you can see, that's what I was just going to show you after the top 20-year-olds. As you can see, pretty much everyone here is 17, 18. And then we got the 16-year-old winger. So these 17-year-olds are just going to have crazy awesome chemistry in a couple of years. They've all played as 16-year-olds last season. Baker was fourth line, and then Kellerman rotated as fourth line center. The other Kellerman was third liner actually as a 16-year-old. And then Joe was in junior B, had a pretty good year. And then Wilder and Kuhn both played third, fourth line roles. And then Packard got called up right at the end of the season when there's an injury. I think he got signed for the playoffs. Didn't play much, but was in junior B, the same thing. And then this Herchensky guy. So when these 17-year-olds when these 18-year-olds are all 19 next season by the end of the year, and the 17-year-olds are all 18, and then that next year where all these 17-year-olds are 19-year-olds, which is this season, and then all those 18-year-olds, a couple of them are OAs, we're going to be really solid and have wicked chemistry for our forward group. Because that's what it's looking like now, is the Kelmans will probably move up to the first line next season, maybe with Warnich, who's on the first line with the OAs this year. And then Wilder, that really good defensive center, will be on that second line. And then Joe, the solid physical player, will be a third line center. And then I got Dix, who's a really good prospect this season, was my second round pick. And then Cernech will be higher than that. I just haven't fixed the lines yet. Those will just be the guys that are the top 12 for sure. Anyways, so that's the forwards, which is really cool. I think I showed you almost everyone. I just didn't show you Packard yet. It's just a solid average and everything. And then we got Herchensky's just a lot like Joe. He's really solid. Got some good offensive ratings. I'm teaching him wing this season. He'll probably move into a center role next year, but he might just stick on the wings. He's not great defensively, but he's good enough where I think he'll be pretty solid as a 19-year-old in the center. So that's the forwards. And the defense I'm really excited about. I got Trotter, who's a 19-year-old, who's going to be an OA next season. Just a really solid, steady defensive player. That's a really good passer. 6'2", which is pretty cool. And then, so yeah, he got the A this season. I named Person the captain, and then we got Vlad as the other A. And then we got Clark as a second line left defenseman, who's a puck mover, really good offensive player, another really good passer on that left side. It's growing a little bit to 190 now, which is nice. He was 6'2", 165 when I drafted him. And then Eisenhunt is 6'5", 235. He's one of the guys I'm most excited about. He was a really late round pick, a ninth rounder, and he's developed nicely. And so he's kind of in that physical third defensive pairing role, splitting time with Hickey here, who's grown to 6'6". He was 6'5", 175, and 6'6", 200 now, and his positioning is already 12, which is cool. And he's just going to be a nice stay-at-home type defenseman. And really excited to see how big and strong he is his 19-year-old year. 6'6", maybe even 6'7", 230 or something like that. We'll see. And he's got pretty cool ratings, which is nice too. I wish he was little better fighter. And then we got Declan Ride's kind of the stud first line defensive two-way center, or not two, more of an offensive center, quarterback on the power play. So really nice offensive game at 6'4", 220. And then Joseph is a second-round pick this year. Is going to be the fourth guy, rotate in. And then the starters are going to be Carlson and Biachini. Carlson's pretty cool. He's just a nice, steady guy that's gained some muscle. He's up to 210. And then Bianchini's only 17, has a nice, solid game, too. A decent skating ratings. Or not really, but solid and defensive guy. So all these defensemen, it's just kind of aged up with those forwards. As you can see, a bunch of 17-year-olds. And then the really good 16-year-old Joseph. So this season is pretty much all 17-year-olds on this team, with the good 19-year-old goalies, actually, which is really cool. He's in camp right now, Montreal. Got a training camp invite. He was a late 7th-round pick as a redraft guy, which is really, really cool. And so Sidyak, he's going to be a starter this season. I'm probably going to have him back as an OA next season. I didn't actually update this yet. I realize I have one more OA spot, so I'm probably going to have him back next season and kind of make me trade Hisu or whatever his name is. Diabonko will be a nice backup, so that'll be cool to get to 2 years of a really good Sidyak. He's developed so nicely. It's really nice to see. I couldn't sign this nice beast from Polish guy, the import pick. He's a monster. 6'5", 235, incredible mental ratings. Got 14 positioning, 13 low shots, 12 reflexes. Just really cool all-around stats, but I can't seem to get him to come to this country, but it doesn't really matter because Diabonko's the same age, but just as good overall. Just a little bit different, but he's a really nice player too. So yeah, that's the team this year. So I'm really excited, and as you can see, pretty much the entire roster is set for next season too. So I have and I have 2 second-round picks this season. I have a first rounder, 2 seconds coming up. So we should have a draft where we can draft a couple young goalies. Probably take a goalie in the first round for the future, because we're going to not really need anything, so we'll just go best player available. So we can probably get a goalie and maybe if we can find a really good player as a defenseman or something in that first round. But most likely take the best goalie in the draft and then just kind of draft for depth. Maybe take a bunch of guys that are like 6'4", 160, 170 and try to just have them in junior B for a couple years. Take some high potential guys and see if they can develop. And then once all these 19-year-olds are gone, they can step in. But we aren't too worried about the future right now. We pretty much have the whole future set up. So all we got to do now is grind a couple seasons and have these young pups grow together and see what they can do. But we should still be good enough this season where we can make a run, even though we're all 17, 18-year-olds, just because I think Pearson and Duve will be kind of one of the better first-line tandems in the league. And we have a couple nice depth pieces, like a couple 19, 20-year-old defensemen, 19-year-old goalie. So we're having enough experience at the key spots, even though we're young overall, that we should be able to make a definitely decent playoff run this season. It's just because the league's pretty weak. This is the year it really drops off because the players aren't as strong in the computer generated. So once you look at like the other teams in this league, like there's not a ton of talent. Like a lot of teams only have a couple 2-stars, and some teams don't even have that. So if you look overall, we should have a really good shot. This is the championship team from last year. Like that's all they return. And if you look at the guys in our division, oh jeez, I never even saw this guy. Who is this? Oof. See, there's all these glitches. All these WHL guys have made their way into the OHL somehow. So the Flyers looks like they've sent him back, and he is. Oh my goodness, that is terrifying. I don't even remember him from last season. He's really developed. Holy smokes! So yeah, he's gonna be a nightmare. Probably the league's best player right there. Damian Gardner. Holy, that's crazy. And then let's look at Sudbury, our other rivals. Sudbury's got Noah Cochran, the Barrie boy. See if we can make a trade for him late in the season. He's a real life guy. They put him in the game. That's pretty cool. And then this defenseman. So yeah, that'll be it for this episode. I don't want to keep it too long. I will sim a couple weeks, and we'll kind of do this season pretty fast. Since everything's kind of set, all the lines are set, we can just kind of grind through it and see if we can make a big deadline acquisition. Maybe definitely Cochran's the guy I think I want to target this year's season if Sudbury isn't very good, because he's a really solid all-around defenseman.